Hello, my name is Tosca Bruno van Vijwijken and I work with the Transnational NGO Initiative, which is also this year launching the Leadership Institute on Transnational NGO Leadership. We launched this institute this fall. It's a leadership preparation program that is geared towards leaders in transnational NGOs, and particularly those who are emerging CEOs, meaning they hope to transition towards CEO positions in their next iteration in their career, and therefore wish to prepare themselves well for that situation. I am today undertaking a brief interview with Suzanne Hayes. She's a contributor to the Transnational NGO Leadership Institute. She is part of our steering group that very much guided the design and the execution of the program, and she is a Maxwell alum. Thank you, Susan, for joining us today. This will be a helpful tool for both practitioners and faculty interested in leadership preparation, but also succession and transition. First, for viewers to understand where you're coming from, what is the nature and mission of your organization, ReSurge International?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure, and as you know, I'm a huge proponent of the program, so I think we're off to a great start. ReSurge International is the oldest reconstructive surgical organization to work on behalf of poor people in developing nations. We were founded in 1969, so we're 42 years old. And our model over the years has been one of providing direct service in the form of reconstructive surgeries to those who have no access to that kind of life-changing surgery. We work in about 14 different countries. But our model has been from the very beginning to go beyond just direct service and to educate local medical teams and eventually empower those teams to do all of the work in their own locality. So the ultimate objective of the organization is really to set up a surgical infrastructure accessible by the poor in places where it didn't exist prior. I should say that we think about reconstructive surgery in this country and we think about plastic surgery, and that means cosmetic surgery to us. Nothing could be further from the truth in our case. The bulk of what we do in the field of reconstructive surgery in the developing world falls into really two buckets. One is congenital birth defects, of which cleft lip and palate, very well known, are one of the most common. Those can completely prevent a poor person in a developing nation from taking part in society at all, if not a fate that's worse than that. And then the other bucket, the largest single type of patient we deal with, in addition to cleft lip and palate, are people who have suffered burns in the developing world, an enormous problem, who then don't get acute care because they can't have access to it, and their wounds heal and cripple them. They can't walk, they can't have fingers and toes anymore, and worse. So those are really the two areas we deal with most frequently.
And from a career perspective, because students will be amongst the viewers of this interview, can you tell us how you became involved in transnational service delivery, transnational activism around, for instance, the burn issue, and your advocacy through WHO and others that you've told me about before, and how over time also you became a leader of ReSurge International?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. I like to say to students these days that sometimes I feel that they're under undue pressure to have a linear career path. My career path was anything but linear, and yet in all the different paths that I took to get to ReSurge, there was no wasted energy. There was no wasted skill set. It all kind of was cumulative. I started out as an academic on a pure academic track to teach political science. The economy at that time wasn't so great. This is a number of years ago. Not a lot of jobs, so I went to work for a think tank, Syracuse Research Corporation. Learned how to write a grant. When time came for me to look for my next step, the local public television station and radio needed a grant writer. I could do that, and I got bitten by nonprofit media. And after 16 years, left that industry as a senior vice president in a major media market in Western New York and Southern Ontario. And the reason I took that next step to try to run a nonprofit is that I had gotten to the point where all the dragons look the same, and you start to slay them. And when they start to look the same, it's kind of time to make a career move.
Yeah.
So I looked for my next step. And I became aware that this organization, ReSurge International, needed its first permanent president and CEO. I was so captivated by the mission that I got myself into the situation that you should never get with a job or real estate, and that is I had to have it. Okay. I had to have this job because I was so captivated by the mission. And so I was able to make that leap from the second level of executive leadership in a nonprofit organization to the senior person, and they let me have the jobs.
Just lucky for them and for
lucky
you.
Lucky for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So just following up for a moment, would it be fair to say that you kind of got bitten also by the nonprofit and NGO culture and values bug while you were at public television here in upstate New York?
I did, and the other fair thing to say is I was born into that kind of environment. I grew up in South Carolina, and my mother was a civil rights leader at a time when things were very different than they are now. And I think she was the model, she was the model for me that what you do with your life is you make a difference and you give back. And I think much to my father's chagrin, we didn't put a lot of emphasis on going into industries that make a lot of money. Yeah. I think he would have loved that. Yeah. But that was not what we four children were kind of groomed to do.
Right.
And then in public broadcasting, I absolutely became enmeshed in the values and the culture of the nonprofit world, and have never really worked in the for-profit industry and never really had a strong desire to do that.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit more? So the Transnational NGO Leadership Institute frames its program in terms of a number of leadership leaps. If you think about you're working just below the top leader, the CEO or Secretary General, whatever the name is in the type of organization you work, you need to make that leap from that level to the top level. How have you experienced some of the dominant leadership leaps that you had to make to? What leadership traits and skill does one need at the top of leadership in international NGOs that one doesn't necessarily need at the second level of responsibility?
Yeah, I love the way the program is structured with those leaps. And I think, as you know, for me, in my assessment, the biggest leap you make is an emotional one. If you kind of go back to the Harry Truman had the little sign on his desk that said, "The buck stops here." Before, whatever you did, you could go home at night and think, as a vice president or a director of a department, you could say, well, not sure I made the right decision, but that's okay, because I've got this person above me, and they're going to keep the rain off my head, and they're going to be the buffer. Well, you look up above when you become CEO, and there isn't anybody. There's a board of directors that's there for a variety of reasons, and one of which is to evaluate you. But it is a very lonely sort of place to be, and you need to become very tough. You need a tough inside. You need to know that the criticism you get, the skepticism you get about maybe change that you want to affect is not about you. In fact, none of it is about you. So I think that sort of emotional leap, it's almost a maturity step. Yeah. That suddenly you're the adult, you're really the adult, and there's nobody else above you. I think the other leap is often if you don't come from the program side, and I think most CEOs of nonprofits probably don't come from the program side, then you have a knowledge leap. I knew about as much about reconstructive surgery as I knew about quantum physics. And so, although I'm not a physician, and I never will be, I needed to know enough about what it was we did in the field to ensure the quality of the service, know what the business model should be, critique our quality improvement, be sure that we provided a safe service for our patients. And so there's that leap. The other leap is the leap from silo to the whole barn. When you're in development or you're in program or you're in communications or whatever, your focus is really that silo. And certainly it's connected strategically to the rest of the organization, but when you're at the CEO level, you're in charge of the whole barn, and no department is more important than another, and that is a very different place to be, very different framework for thinking. So those would be my top
So
three.
you're at top two, yeah. Are there any challenges that your organization, ReSurge International, or any issues that you see on the horizon? It doesn't have to be problematic issues, but just things that need to be addressed in terms of leadership transition and leadership succession. And how is ReSurge International preparing for those transitions?
It's a wonderful question, and I'm not sure whether those watching now will know that recently the national literature has been very forthcoming about this fear of the leadership gap that's going to occur when this enormous collection of baby boomers who are running the nonprofit sector these days either retire or pass away. We're aging, and so the question is, who's going to take our place? There's that concern, and as you know, I have two people from my shop, two wonderful directors who are here to try to see if they are the next people to do that kind of thing in our shop or elsewhere. But I also think that on top of that, the uncertainty of this economy has produced a situation when we baby boomers may not retire as quickly as those folks who are coming up to take our place would like us to. I think that's a real concern for the organization. Yeah. Is it really a good idea to stay somewhere 25 years as the CEO? Well, if you're 60 years old and you thought you might retire at 60, but now maybe it looks like it'd be a better idea to wait till 70, I think it creates those, for the younger people coming up, there's sort of this, gosh, we need some space opened up for us to take these positions. Yeah. So I think that's not just true for ReSurge, I think that's true across the country.
Yes, definitely, yes. Okay, and then my last question would be, obviously you have very much experience in both running your organization and nonprofit organizations and NGOs in general. Yet, are there some things we are now, let me see, 2.5 days into the program of the Leadership Institute, are there some pieces of understanding, or not so much skill sets maybe in your case, but pieces of understanding that you have picked up from attending parts of the program that you weren't totally familiar with before?
Absolutely, and this has been great for me. My desire was to try to contribute to the program, but the program has already in several days given so much back to me. Here's a reality for many of us, I think, as CEOs in the nonprofit sector. We work long days, we work very hard, we put out fires, we're fundraising, we're doing all the things that we need to do to keep the darn organization running and relevant and fulfilling its mission.
Right.
We don't have a lot of time and space to sit back, look at the academic literature, read the theories of the people who look at and analyze our sector. And as a former academic, I think I didn't realize how much I had missed that until this week. And I love the fact that that's what's happening here. From those theories, from the data, from the studies that have been done, I've learned a tremendous amount about the broader context in which I work, and also about what how academics regard the jobs that we do. And lots of things I've learned about introspection and analysis and looking at the various skill sets you have on your staff and managing them appropriately, leading the organization.
Okay. Well, this has been a very useful interview, and I want to thank you once again for your tremendous support for launching the Institute and for the insights and wisdom that you've shared with our participants over the last couple of days. Thank you.
Believe me, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.